Hey folks, today I'm going to talk about loading pins. So what are they? If you're looking at my other videos on cables and pulleys and cable systems, these are the things that actually hold weight for your system. And so you hook a carabiner up to the top and a pulley, and then you pull this and any weights that are on it up in the air, and that's what provides your resistance. Now, I bought one from Titan, that's this one, and I bought two from Rogue. So here's the deal. I bought the Titan one first. It's fine. I liked it. It was actually pretty good. But then I saw that the Rogue one is almost the same price. So my general rule of thumb is that when the price is close, I'll go with Rogue, and usually there's a perceived difference in quality. In this case, that is true. So let's talk about what's different about them. For one thing, the base on this Titan is smaller than the base on the Rogue. The Rogue has more real estate down here at the bottom. If you look at the top, the tubes, the thickness of the metal here is clearly thinner than the thickness of the Rogue. And if we look at the tang, like the Wu-Tang Clan here, okay, the tang here, the one for Titan is thinner than the one for Rogue. So the Rogue powder coat is better. The Titan powder coat is very, very good. This is like a 9 out of 10. This is actually well built for a Titan product. Rogue, though, their powder coat is always 10 for 10. It's amazingly good. All right, now the only other thing I'll say is that on the Titan loading pin, that tang at the top is just ever so slightly crooked. So the Rogue one's perfectly straight. So Rogue is beefier, costs a little bit more, maybe 20% more. I think you can get shipping deals on it, but it was not that much more expensive than Titan. I recommend going with Rogue. The other difference, though, if we look down here at the bottom, you'll see this is called a bead. It happens when things are welded, okay? Now, the bead on the Titan is much smaller than the bead on the Rogue. And this is one of the reasons why when I saw this bead on the Titan, I wanted to get another one, not because the bead was too little, but because it was too big. And let me talk about what I mean there. But then the Rogue has this giant globby bead. Now, you may think that this means that the Rogue is higher quality. That's not necessarily true. So the way welding works is, ideally, you would just take two pieces of metal, you'd match them up to each other and heat them up so much they'd melt into one solid piece of metal. Okay, that is very difficult to do, so they use filler material. Like you'll see when people do the oxyacetylene welding, they'll have a kind of a big stick of filler material that they feed into the weld, and then that's how you get this big bead. Nowadays with the welders, there's like, it feeds wire in for like TIG and MIG welders and various other kinds of welders. But this big giant glob of bead does not mean higher quality. It actually may mean lower quality. It may mean that they didn't match up the two pieces of metal together as well. Now, in this case, I doubt it. I think just based on Titan quality and Rogue quality, they probably matched the pieces of metal up probably better at Rogue, and they just are being extra safe by putting a giant bead. But a big bead of filler material here is actually a bad thing. Let me show you why. The goal, of course, is to put weight on these things. So I'm going to put weight on the Titan thingy, and I'll put it on the, I'm sorry, one on the Rogue and one on the Titan. Now, here's the problem. I want this weight to be resting against the base, and you can see there's a little gap. Why is there a gap? Because of the filler material. The filler material is pushing up against the bottom of this weight in the very middle. You do not want this. It's either going to deform the metal, it could cause it to crack, it will do something bad. You never want to see something like this where all the weight is probably only resting on a couple of different points here where the filler material stuck up, and then now you've got a couple of points where you're applying an inordinate amount of stress to this plate, and the plate can crack over time. What about Rogue? Rogue has a way bigger, look at how giant that gap is. Rogue has a lot more filler material. This is bad. You do not want this. So I kind of obsessed over what is the most cost-effective and most reasonable way to fix this situation. And I was watching one of the other fitness channels, I think it was Meg Squats, and they were showing a product that they called fitness sliders, which just cracked me up. Hold on, let me go get some sliders here. Okay, so if you've never seen furniture sliders, these are awesome. You put them under the legs of your furniture and then you can slide your furniture anywhere you want to slide it. They are great, and there are some that are really overpriced. These are just typical Harbor Freight ones. Super, super cheap to get. They're just worth having around your house, and there's a picture of like a slider under a leg of the table. But if you have to move furniture around, you want some of these. And I'm pretty sure this whole box of sliders came with 4 large ones and 4 little ones. Cost less than $10. Now, the fitness sliders were, I don't know, $30 or $40. Some people just have no shame, and those fitness sliders were basically this. So, but it inspired me. I thought, well, let me see if there's a small size one. This one's relatively small in size. It's kind of a little bigger than that. So I just sort of tried to make a guess and cut a hole in the middle of some with a utility knife, and you can see it's just a beautiful work of artistic clean cuts, and it's okay, it looks terrible, but that's, you know, it is what it is. All right, so now what happens is this is pushing down. Little soft material in here is compressing at the high points of the filler material, and so when I put this weight on there, I'm not going to get those little points of stress. It'll rest flat against the slider, and then the padding part of the slider will level out the excessively large parts of the bead. So that's it. So my recommendation here, I would say either one is perfectly fine. Rogue is definitely beefier, better made, much larger bead. Get yourself some sliders, cut a hole in the middle of them so that you can stick your weights on them without it, because otherwise those little tiny points at the top of the filler material, the high points of it, are going to stress on certain parts of your weight. Could deform the weight, could cause the weight to crack. It's just bad all the way around. So I'd like to see both manufacturers do something to address this so that you didn't have to cut up one of these fitness sliders. So you wouldn't have to cut up a slider or something like that to compensate for what's clearly a problem with the way the product is. But other than that, there's no technology in these things. The Rogue one, totally beefier, costs about 20% more. So, you know, use your judgment. I went with the Rogue ones for my cable rig, and then I just happen to have now an extra Titan one for, you can hang it, you know, hang weight from a belt or use it for pretty much any purpose you want. So I've got one other loading pin. These are like $30-ish. So that's what I found out. So my opinion, go with Rogue. If you go with Titan, you'll save 20%, and it's probably good enough. And in both cases, do something to cover up that excess of filler material that is around the weld, where they weld the base to the top. So only other thing is the bottom of the Rogue has a hole in it, and the bottom of the Titan doesn't. So you know, if that's important to you, then you can do something with it if you drop. I don't know when this would become important, but maybe it is. Who knows? I don't know. But that's it. That's everything there is to know about loading pins.